Hey, you guys. All right, I'm going to go over some questions, some answers that have been coming through the office quite a bit, and it's expected. And I just do not stop asking questions; just keep fielding them through because we're all navigating this together. So we're going to go over some more real facts question and answer series revolved around NARs, the settlement agreement changes, and the fluid pieces of what we're doing every day. So let me jump into one of our first questions, and then we're going to kind of go over what some of those answers look like, okay? All right, so first question is, who is responsible for ensuring the compensation collected as a buyer broker commission does not exceed the sum agreed to the buyer in the written buyer representation agreement? So this I know is new for all of us because we have a buyer's rep and say we put 3% in there. And then at the end of the day, there's been some negotiations or something was offered, and we end up having maybe a 4% or a 5% and whatever that might look like. Well, we really have to be paying attention to this now because it's not legal for us to get more than what is put into the buyer's rep agreement, of course, unless there's an amendment that was made. So let's go into an answer for this for you guys. So as a reminder, under the settlement terms, a buyer representative may not collect compensation that exceeds the sum around agreement to in the written buyer agreement. So the broad language that allows a buyer representative to collect anything offered by the seller or up to a certain amount or percentage is not permissible at all. So while our title companies will have their own procedures in place to ensure accurate figures, sums and distributions are made as part of the closing, this does not alleviate us as the brokers at the brokerages from establishing appropriate processes to verify and confirm compensation amounts as part of their closing instructions. And so basically, we're not going to rely completely on the title company to make sure that our buyer's rep agreement doesn't say less or say more or less than what's being received at the settlement, at the closing table. So we have our procedures. You're going to have your procedures put into place, just making sure that, hey, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. We need to get an amendment. We need to amend something here because our original buyer's rep agreement is not, is showing lower than what's being accepted. So just something to keep in mind as we're navigating through this. Have another question that has come up is I've heard some brokerages saying they will no longer make offers of compensation to make offers of cooperating compensation to the buyer representatives. So nor are they accepting cooperating offers of compensation. Does this mean there will be no compensation offered to the buyer representative? And so, well, the answer is no, that doesn't mean that. What this goes into is a very lengthy answer. So let's do that together, okay? So no, it's not necessarily that way. So under the settlement statement, if you will, the settlement that's out there, several mechanisms for paying compensation to a buyer broker have emerged. And let's go through those pieces. So there's four. The first one is more of your traditional method. It's how we usually got paid, right? The seller offers a compensation to the listing brokerage, and the listing broker then agrees to share a percentage of that commission with a buyer representative. And number two is direct compensation. So the seller may compensate the buyer representative directly via the offer submitted. So you could just do that directly right through that process. Number three is the buyer pays directly. So the buyer pays their buyer representative directly with no participation from the seller or listing broker. All right, guys, well, if you were doing correctly prior to July or June 24th, 2024, you were using buyer rep agreements anyway. And so that's how you would have gotten paid if a seller wasn't paying, kind of like a for sale by owner too, you were getting compensated from the buyer. So that was, to me, is a little more traditional too. But then there's a combination of all of the above. We actually could get to the closing table with a small percentage out of a traditional method. We can also get to the table along with a direct compensation where the seller is compensating the buyer rep or the buyer's representative, so you as the buyer's agent directly through the offer that was submitted. And then whatever's left over could be a percentage coming in from your buyer through the buyer's rep agreement. So there's so many different ways that this can happen. So we just have to stay vigilant through this process. Now we're not done. We got some more here. So I want to go in a little more detail that a brokerage stating they will no longer make or accept cooperating offers of compensation is simply eliminating the first option. So it's just the first traditional option. It's just eliminated. So then we also have 1, 2, 3. So we actually have 3 more options there of offering. So offering or accepting a shared percentage of the listing brokerage commission. So instead, the brokerages may handle offers of compensation in one of 3 other ways, where the seller paid directly, or the buyer pays directly, or the combination of the seller and the buyer coming together to get the percentage that you, as the buyer's agent, is to be compensated. I hope that makes sense. It does to me. That there's just so many different ways. We get stuck in the norm, which there is no more norm. We get stuck in that sometimes, that it's always been a certain way, and really it hasn't. So we just have to think bigger, and we're going to find ways to make sure that what compensation is due will be had. We just have to have clarity and disclosure. So many view this as a safer approach, which you're seeing some other brokerages saying this or approaching this way to handling their buyer broker compensation, as it separates the 2 commissions into distinct negotiations and choices for the seller. So try not to get stuck in a way. Just know that there's more than one way to get compensated. All right. And when we work together through the process, it's just, let's keep calm. We'll talk, we'll work through the process. We just also have to make sure we have the right forms and documents put into place. So if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. You are not alone in this process, guys. We're all going through it together, and I know you're not the only one that has a question. So, all right, we know that we're here for you, and I'm going to continue to collect more of the questions that are coming in so that we can all learn together. All right.